As the space shuttle prepares to land, and looking at NASA Mission Control in Houston, Texas. Now, they're getting ready to guide Atlantis in from its final scheduled mission to space. Atlantis is scheduled to land at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida in less than 30 minutes. So here's what's happening with the shuttle. Now, Atlantis has finished its deorbit burn and should be feeling the effects of the atmosphere about right now. Now, this model of the shuttle was made by a Google Earth user who goes by the name Dan. And I should point out that the wheels pictured here will still be retracted at this point in its reentry. Now, here's the approximate track it will take. At this point, it's still about 8,000 kilometers away from the landing zone in Florida, and the landing path, it would take the shuttle over Central America and Cuba before it loops back to land at the Kennedy Space Center. Atlantis is scheduled to be retired after this mission, and the other shuttles will also become history following their final mission. So what is NASA going to do with them? As John Zarella reports, the shuttles could be coming to a museum near you.
I see 3 at 104. I see a command and a roll.
Houston, Discovery Roll Program.
As they rocket to space, the astronauts watch the world fall away below them.
Hitting RPM 3, 2, 1, mark.
Discovery does a somersault as it approaches the space station. Nearly 30 years of these oh wow moments almost over. The end of this year or sometime next, the last shuttle will fly. So what do you do with 3 old orbiters? Heck, Atlantis has got 120 million miles on her. If you're NASA, you can't get all teary-eyed and nostalgic. You got to unload those old clunkers and move on. Put a for sale sign on Atlantis and Discovery and Endeavor. So you've got to build a building right here that would enclose the space shuttle. It's got to be a temperature control building, all right?
Has to be all up to artifact standards, but more than just the building for the shuttle, we have to tell the story.
Bill Moore heads the privately run visitor complex at the Kennedy Space Center. They are one of at least a dozen suitors ready, in fact eager, to fork over to NASA $28.8 million for an orbiter.
We're not selling them, remember, this is what it's going to cost to get it cleaned up, make it safe to display, and then to actually get it there.
You've got almost $30 million ready to hand that check to NASA.
Between our cash and our loan arrangements, we could take the shuttle tomorrow and get ready to go.
There's no real rush, space agency officials say, to announce who gets which one, because the orbiters are still flying. NASA has offered Discovery, the oldest in the fleet, to the Smithsonian. Museum officials there told us questions about cost, quote, have not been resolved, although the museum is exploring options. One orbiter option is the Big Apple. Folks at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum say more people would see it here than anywhere else. They estimate a 30% increase in attendance.
Figure over 300,000 people additional to the Intrepid, to New York City. Couple that with the $106 million in economic benefit, we think that's a pretty good deal.
Landing one of history's first space planes would certainly qualify as a pretty good deal. John Zarella, CNN at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
I don't know, Mari's going to agree with me when I say this. It is all coming too fast. I mean, we are nearing an absolute end of an era. It's happening too quickly for me.
It is happening way too quickly for me as well, you know. And if you haven't had a chance to see one of these take off or land in person, really try to do that, because there's only, 2 left after this, and this landing is expected to be beautiful. The next launches are expected to be spectacular as well. And right now, of course, on the space shuttle, they're very, very busy. They have to have it at the right orientation. You know, when it lands, Christy, it's about 7 times the angle of a commercial jetliner. That's how steep that landing is, and should happen probably in the next, it's at 8:41, so in less than 20 minutes away. Pretty cool stuff. As far as the weather goes at the Kennedy Space Center, Christy, even an hour ago, about an hour and a half ago, they were still not sure if the weather was going to cooperate for this first launch approaches at 8:48 local time. Still some isolated scattered rain showers, but I guess they're thinking they're going to be far away enough from the landing site that it will not pose a threat to the space shuttle. So they went ahead, and now the deorbit is happening, and the launch, I should say, the landing for Atlantis should happen fairly soon. So pretty cool stuff there.
Of the landing strip in Florida, the Kennedy Space Center. That's all for now for our World Report. We've got the headlines, Talk Asia, all up next.
Atlantis, you can take TACANs and GPS.
Copy, TACANs and GPS.
The 3 redundant tactical air navigation units on board Atlantis are now receiving information from radio beacons along the flight path of Atlantis as it nears the Kennedy Space Center. Those TACAN units will update the guidance and navigation computers on board Atlantis as it continues on in its flight. Atlantis' current velocity 4,900 miles per hour. That is Mach 7.2. Its altitude 27 miles, 266 miles now from the Kennedy Space Center, about to cross the western edge of the state of Florida. Now just 10 minutes to touchdown. Space Shuttle Atlantis about to cross Lake Okeechobee there in Florida. The current speed 3,700 miles per hour, altitude 125,000 feet, range to touchdown 183 miles. Now just 9 more minutes in the flight of Atlantis. Space Shuttle Atlantis now in view of the cameras there at the Kennedy Space Center. Its speed 2,900 miles per hour, its altitude 20 statute miles. Its range there from KSC 127 miles.
Our long-range camera has a tally-ho.
Copy. That flares.
Didn't work. Atlantis, you can take air data.
Copy, taking air data.
That call confirming that the 2 Air data probes on the left and right of Atlantis's nose have been deployed and are receiving good data on the shuttle's position and speed. And data now being updated in the shuttle's guidance and navigation computers. Atlantis' current speed Mach 2.8. Its altitude 16 miles, range to the Kennedy Space Center 77 miles. Sonic booms now audible over Florida as Atlantis continues to head toward the Kennedy Space Center. Its current speed 1,300 miles per hour, its altitude 14 miles. Range to the Kennedy Space Center now 68 miles. Space Shuttle Atlantis now in its final moments of flight. 5.5 minutes to go till touchdown.
Atlantis, you are on energy, approaching the hack. No changes to winds or weather. You'll be nominal, shoot, deploy.
Copy, no changes, nominal shoot.
Good read back.
Atlantis' current speed Mach 1.6. Its altitude 12 miles. Range to the Kennedy Space Center 41 miles, continuing to bear down on runway 33. Atlantis now just 5 minutes away from touchdown. It is approaching what is known as the heading alignment cylinder. This is an imaginary circle that is created by the microwave landing system there at the Kennedy Space Center. It sits off the end of the runway and is about 7 miles wide. Commander Ken Ham will take control of the flight at that point in time and will steer the shuttle around that imaginary circle. This will allow the proper energy and the ground track and setup for the final approach and landing there at KSC. This is a view from the heads-up display. This is exactly what the crew is seeing at this point in time. Atlantis' current speed 653 miles per hour. Its altitude 9 miles. Its range to the Kennedy Space Center now 30 miles. Touchdown now just 4 minutes away.
Meine Damen und Herren, jetzt geht's ab ins All, denn die Atlantis kehrt zurück und das möchten wir Ihnen noch zeigen und da haben wir sie in ganzer Pracht.
Tja, um 13:41 Uhr genau zündete die Atlantis kurz ihre Triebwerke um, rückwärts fliegend abzubremsen. Den heiklen Eintritt in die Erdatmosphäre, den hat sie schon geschafft.
Ja, und nun schwebt sie da also dem US-Raum, Raumbahnhof entgegen in Cape Canaveral Space Center, am Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 14:48 Uhr, also in 3 Minuten 10 Sekunden soll es dann soweit sein.
Wir werden das Ganze für Sie live verfolgen. Nur noch mal zur Erinnerung, am 14. Mai, da war die Atlantis ja ins All gestartet und dockte für 2 Tage später dann an der Internationalen Raumstation an. Und die Shuttle-Astronauten, die brachten Ersatzteile, Vorräte und auch das russische Minimodul Rasvet zur ISS.
Ja, und dieses neue Zimmer, könnte man vielleicht dazu sagen, wird dann auch genutzt. Es soll für weitere wissenschaftliche Forschungen dienen und eben diese Andockstation, die eben auch für die zum Beispiel anderen russischen Raketen wie Soyuz oder Progress dienen.
In wenigen Minuten wird es soweit sein, wenn alles planläufig verläuft. Und so eine Landung, die wird 4 Stunden vorher genau geplant. Da beginnt die Crew mit den Vorbereitungen. Der Bordcomputer, der wird dann für eben den Wiedereintritt konfiguriert. Und das Hydrauliksystem sowie die Klappsysteme, die werden dann auch pünktlich überprüft.
Ja, und jetzt telefonisch ist uns zugeschaltet Friedhelm Klaassen vom Deutschen Zentrum für Luft- und Raumfahrt. Einen schönen guten Tag. unser Experte immer, wenn es eben um Raumfahrt geht. Herr Klaassen, wenn Sie diese Bilder hier sehen, noch ein bisschen unscharf, aber in der ganzen Pracht sehen wir der Atlantis. Das ist der letzte Flug zurück. Kommt da bei Ihnen auch ein bisschen Wehmut auf?
Ja, zunächst guten Tag nach Köln. Natürlich kommt Wehmut auf. Das ist jetzt der drittletzte Flug und wie Sie schon sagten, eine pünktliche Start. Jetzt wieder eine pünktliche Landung. Alles funktioniert wie im Bilderbuch. Also es ist beeindruckend, dieses System. Aber man darf nicht vergessen, es geht auf Entwicklungen der 70er Jahre zurück. Und es ist so komplex, dass es doch, wenn man es länger weiterfliegen würde, eine gewisse Gefahr bedeuten würde, die man nicht unterschätzen darf.
Sie haben es angesprochen, allein das Wort Gefahr. Viele Menschen, wenn sie ein solches Space Shuttle sehen, denken natürlich unwillkürlich vor allem auch an den Challenger-Unfall 1986, als eben dort die 7 Besatzungsmitglieder ums Leben kamen. Würden Sie sagen, dass trotz dieses und des weiteren Unfalls von Columbia das Space Shuttle-Programm ein erfolgreiches war?
Ein Erfolg war es auf jeden Fall. Man hat zum ersten Mal wirklich gezeigt, dass man Lastentransport und Astronautentransport kombinieren kann. Aber das ist natürlich ein unheimlich komplexes System. Die Russen haben dieses nie so zusammengefasst. Die haben immer ihre Lastentransporte und Astronautentransporte auseinandergehalten, wie wir es jetzt hier für die ISS haben mit Progress und Sojus. Und das macht natürlich den Lastentransport deutlich kostengünstiger.
Ja, Herr Klaassen, gelegentlich erreichen uns nicht nur die Bilder, sondern eben auch die Funkfrequenzen. Da hören wir mal kurz rein.
Ja, auch die Bilder, die wir gerade aus dem Cockpit gesehen haben, sind natürlich sehr beeindruckend. Es ist fast so, als wenn man in einer Verkehrsmaschine nach vorne rausschaut. Und
ja, da sind wir doch ergriffen, kann man sagen. Eine perfekte Mission geht zu Ende?
Ja, wirklich eine perfekte Mission. Auch die Außenbordarbeiten haben einwandfrei funktioniert. Die ISS ist bestens ausgerüstet jetzt. Und das ist ja auch Ziel der letzten Flüge, dass man wirklich auf Vorrat jetzt Sachen hochbringt, weil der Shuttle eben dann ab nächsten Jahr nicht mehr zur Verfügung steht.
Herr Klaassen, hier wurde bei uns in der Redaktion gerade geklatscht bei der Landung. Also eine Landung, die hervorragend offenbar geklappt hat. Wo liegt denn die besondere Gefahr einer solchen Landung?
Der erste gefährliche Punkt ist natürlich der Wiedereintritt in die obersten Atmosphärenschichten. Genau der Punkt, wo auch seinerzeit das Columbia-Unglück passiert ist. Es sind enorme Belastungen, die der Shuttle dort aushalten muss. Das sind die Hitzeschildkacheln, die dann auf über 1500 Grad Celsius aufgeheizt werden an manchen Bereichen. Und wenn da irgendwo eine scharfe Kante ist oder ein Loch ist, dann kann die Hitze natürlich nach innen eindringen und dort Schäden verursachen.
Mit dieser Landung kann man schon sagen, geht eine Ära zu Ende. Was heißt das denn für die bemannte Raumfahrt in den USA?
Ja, noch nicht ganz zu Ende. Wir haben ja noch 2 weitere Shuttle-Missionen, aber es ist eben ganz klar ausgeplant bis zum Ende. Und wir machen jetzt mit den Shuttle-Flügen erstmal wesentliche Versorgungsflüge zur ISS noch. Es werden Vorräte oben angelegt und große Teile hochgebracht, die man in den nächsten Jahren nicht ohne weiteres transportieren kann. Wir haben dann aber noch, wenn der Shuttle einmal stillgelegt ist, das europäische Versorgungsfahrzeug ATV, auch ein unbemanntes Transportfahrzeug, was zur ISS geht. Des Weiteren haben wir sehr ähnlich aufgebaut wie das ATV ein japanisches Versorgungsfahrzeug, was zur ISS geht. Und dann natürlich die altbekannten russischen Systeme, Progress-Versorgungsfrachter und dann für die Astronauten die Sojus-Kapseln, die jeweils 3 Astronauten zur Station oder zurück von der Station zur Erde bringen können. Das heißt, die Versorgung der Station, sowohl bezüglich Mannschaftswechsel als auch mit den üblichen Versorgungsgütern, ist sichergestellt, auch wenn wir jetzt eine mehrjährige Lücke auf amerikanischer Seite für den bemannten Transport haben.
Ja, während wir hier das stehende Shuttle, die Atlantis, sehen, Sie haben es angesprochen, Herr Klaassen, also am Ende sind es dann 3 Raumfähren, die im November eingemottet werden sollen. Man kann sie dann noch im Museum besuchen. Sie haben uns ein bisschen erklärt, wie es weitergehen soll. Also der Transport ist gesichert. Aber wenn wir mal weiter vorausschauen in die Zukunft, was wäre aus Ihrer Sicht der nächste Schritt in die Raumfahrt?
Ja, den niedrigen Erdorbit beherrschen wir jetzt. Wir sind dort seit über 10 Jahren mit Astronauten, Kosmonauten präsent. Der nächste Schritt ist natürlich wirklich die freie Raumfahrt über den rein irdischen Orbit hinaus. Das kann die Strecke zum Mond wieder sein, obwohl Obama dort ja etwas Zurückhaltung gezeigt hat, was sich aber auch nur auf die bemannte Raumfahrt bezieht. Die Amerikaner, und das ist eigentlich ein weltweites Bemühen jetzt, alle praktisch wesentlichen raumfahrenden Nationen werden sich jetzt dem Mond und auch dem Mars zuwenden. Das sind die nächsten Ziele, die in unserer Umgebung sind. Zunächst sind wir natürlich in der Lage, mit robotischen Missionen dorthin zu fliegen, die Umgebung dort zu erkunden, die Randbedingungen zu erkunden und spätere bemannte Flüge vorzubereiten. Es ist davon auszugehen, dass die Amerikaner mit dem neuen von Obama vorgesehenen Haushalt, beschlossen ist er ja noch nicht, in der Lage sind, alle ca. 18 Monate eine Mission zum Mond zu fliegen, eine robotische Mission zum Mond. Und das ist eine kontinuierliche Abfolge und das werden nicht nur die Amerikaner sein. Wir planen hier in Europa ebenfalls eine robotische Mondmission, die ca. 2018 stattfinden soll. Wir beabsichtigen 2016 mit der ESA zum Mars zu fliegen, dort eine Landung vorzunehmen. 2018 soll eine weitere Marslandung dann mit einem europäischen Roverfahrzeug erfolgen. Das heißt, wir gehen jetzt über den niedrigen Erdorbit hinaus mit einer regelmäßigen Exploration unseres Sonnensystems. Zunächst mal das, was wir in der Nähe erreichen können. Und das sind nun mal nur Mond und Mars.
Ja, Herr Klaassen, vielen Dank für die Kommentierung und natürlich Vorausschau. Vielen Dank Ihnen. Und wir sehen hier nochmal das Space Shuttle stehen. Atlantis ist pünktlich gelandet. Alles ist zeitplanmäßig und planmäßig verlaufen.
Mit dem fachmännischen Kommentar von Friedhelm Klaassen vom Deutschen Zentrum für Luft- und Raumfahrt. Soweit diese Live-Bilder von der NASA.
Pilot Tony Antonelli now taking control of the stick for a few minutes, steering Atlantis around this heading alignment circle. This is a right overhead turn of 320 degrees. This will set up the shuttle for its final approach and landing there on runway 33. Now just 3 minutes to go. The shuttle's traveling 547 miles per hour. Its altitude 6 miles.
And Houston, Atlantis, field in sight.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Now the commander, Ken Ham, now taking control of the shuttle.
You're on at the 180.
Copy, on at the 180. It's a beautiful day.
Absolutely.
2.5 more minutes to go in Atlantis' flight. There you see the Florida coast coming into view. The shuttle continuing to turn to the right and line up with runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center. Commander Ken Ham continuing to finish up this heading alignment circle turn.
Atlantis, you are on at the 90.
Copy, on at the 90.
In just a few seconds, the shuttle's crew will get their first view of the Kennedy Space Center. Atlantis now traveling 400 miles per hour.
And Houston, now the left side of the cockpit has the runway in sight.
Copy that, Hawk. Field in sight.
Once again, this is the heads-up display that Commander Ken Ham is taking a look at as he pilots Atlantis down toward this runway. Space Shuttle Atlantis now traveling 389 miles per hour. It is now on final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. During this point in the flight, the shuttle's descent rate is 20 times steeper than a commercial airliner. Its angle of attack more than 7 times steeper. Now under 1 minute to go in Atlantis' flight. Atlantis now beginning what is known as the pre-flare maneuver. It will pull the nose up a little bit right before it hits the runway. Its speed now 320 miles per hour. The gear is down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Atlantis' nose being now rotated down toward the runway. The chute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown. Space Shuttle Atlantis now comes home to the Kennedy Space Center for the final time. 25 years, 32 flights, and more than 120 million miles traveled. The legacy of Atlantis now in the history books.
Atlantis, we have wheel stop.
Copy, wheel stop, Atlantis. Hawk, that landing was something that your Air Force crewmates should have really been proud of. That looked pretty sweet. For you and your crew, that was suiting into an incredible mission. I'm sure the station crew members hated to see you leave, but we're glad to have you back. And you guys executed flawlessly. And not only that, you had a great time doing it. And that was very evident from the ground. And everybody down here really enjoyed working with you. With that, we'll get you back to work. We'll meet you in the post-landing page 5-3. There are no deltas.
Okay, Sarge, thanks, and thanks to all you guys too. We'll go over to 5-3, and we'll finish up post-landing and turn this incredible machine back over to the ground teams to put her back in the barn for a little bit.
Yeah, we concur.
And with those words from STS-132 Commander Ken Ham talking with the Capcom Charlie Hobaugh here inside Mission Control Houston, Atlantis has wrapped up a 32-year career, 32 missions, as well as this 132 flight. It traveled 4,879,978 miles on this STS-132 mission.
Convoy Commander, Atlantis, com check.
The crew will now get in touch with the convoy commander as they approach the vehicle there on runway 33 there at the Kennedy Space Center.
Convoy Commander, this is Atlantis, com check.
They will begin the process of safing the shuttle, and they will approach it and begin the process of also getting the crew out.
And Houston, just to keep you in the loop, we're not establishing comm with Convoy Commander. Yeah, NCC, you are loud and clear. Copy, thanks to be here. ET umbilical doors are coming open.
We copy. ET umbilical doors coming open.
This is Mission Control to Houston. Space Shuttle Atlantis is sitting there on the runway at the Kennedy Space Center after wrapping up this STS-132 mission.
When you're able, we'll take the rad reconfig followed by ammonia activation on page 5-8.
This was his 32nd and final flight in his 25-year history.
Okay, thanks.
We now have official times for you on the main gear, nose gear touchdown, as well as the wheel stop. Main gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 2 seconds. That was 7:48 and 11 seconds Central Time. Touchdown occurred at 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 12 seconds for mission elapsed time. Central Time, that was 7:48 and 21 seconds.
I will set the body flap.
We agree, Tony. We do not need the hydraulic load test. We're ready for the body flap.
Wheel stop occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 29 minutes, and 9 seconds. And that was Central Time, 7:49 and 18. So once again, those official numbers. Main gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 2 seconds. Central Time, that was 7:48 and 11 seconds a.m. Nose gear touchdown was 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 12 seconds for mission elapsed time.
Loud and clear.
And for Central Time, that was 7:48 and 21 seconds. Wheel stop occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 29 minutes, and 9 seconds.
Hey, we have you loud and clear.
Central Time, that was 7:49 and 18 seconds a.m.
Okay, sounds great. We caught your earlier call, too.
And we'll have those historical numbers for you once again in just a few minutes.
Hey, Hawk, you can take ammonia controller alpha to Pry GPC.
Alpha to Pry GPC.
Thanks, Mike. And Hawk, we've pulled the room, and you will be go for the Ops 9 transition.
Copy, we'll be go for the Ops 9 when we get there.
Good read. we'll put the brakes on you until we get into Ops 9, and we'll have you pick up with SSME repo.
Copy, Scorch. Just chilling.
Literally, I suppose.
This is Mission Control Houston. The convoy there at the Kennedy Space Center continuing to work down through the procedures to get Atlantis safed. And once they verify that everything's in proper working order, they will start to get the crew out of the vehicle. Once again, here's the official numbers for you. Main gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 2 seconds. Central time, that was 7:48 and 11 seconds a.m. Nose gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 12 seconds. Central time, that was 7:48 a.m. and 21 seconds. Wheel stop occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 29 minutes, and 9 seconds. Central time, that was 7:49 and 18 seconds a.m.
And Houston from Atlantis, bottom of 5-4. The RJDs are off. The side hatch, drag chute, and landing gears are safe.
Awesome. Thanks, Hawk. We'll meet you on page 5-6 then for the Ops 9 transition.
Copy.
Tony, we see you picking up in SSME repo, and for Hawk, we'll meet you on the page, on top of page 5-10 for PCS DAC and subs.
Okay, Scorch, I'm picking up in SSME repo. Hawk's going to 510 PCS DAC and subs.
We agree, and we'll check on the extended power-up. you get to it, we will be go for extended power up. When you finish on 510, that'll send you to 5-14.
Okay, Scorch. Thanks for leading us through this, and we'll be go for extended power up.
Good read.
This is Mission Control Houston. Space Shuttle Atlantis still sitting there on the runway at the Kennedy Space Center after wrapping up this STS-132 mission. During this particular flight, the shuttle traveled 4,879,978 miles. Throughout Atlantis's 32 missions, it traveled 120,650,907 miles. That sound you're hearing from the shuttle are the auxiliary power units. They're still turned on and up and running. Those will be shut down here shortly. The ground team there, the convoy team, still working to safe the vehicle. They will be approaching a bit closer here in a little bit once they make sure that there's no toxic fumes or anything coming off of the shuttle.
APU high shut down.
You are go for APU hide shutdown.
And Houston, I got everybody pause right now, and if you're ready, we'll do the set contraction.
Hey, we like your plan, Hawk. We're ready. We like your NBAT. You can do the set contraction. And Hawk, we see you continuing with GPC power down.
Thank you.
And for Tony, we'll meet you in the post-landing MPS reconfig, followed by the vent door purge positioning.
Copy, and I see the note about the time.
Good catch. DOF suits.
Copy, go to DOF suits, thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston. The crew in the process of shutting down Atlantis' auxiliary power units. Number 1 and number 2 are shut down. Number 3 is on its way. And the 3 powerhouses on board Atlantis have now been shut down. In just a few seconds, the convoy will approach the shuttle a little bit closer. And the crew on board will get ready to exit the vehicle here shortly.
Houston, APU hide shutdown's complete.
We see it, Tony. Tony, thanks.
While recovery operations continue on Space Shuttle Atlantis there at the Kennedy Space Center, we're going to show you the replays of the landing now from the various cameras there at KSC. So we will stand by for that here on NASA television. Commander Ken Ham is taking a look at as he pilots Atlantis down toward this runway. Space Shuttle Atlantis now traveling 389 miles per hour. It is now on final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. During this point in the flight, the shuttle's descent rate is 20 times steeper than a commercial airliner. Its angle of attack more than 7 times steeper. Now under 1 minute to go in Atlantis' flight. Atlantis now beginning what is known as the pre-flare maneuver. It will pull the nose up a little bit right before it hits the runway. Its speed now 320 miles per hour. The gear is down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Atlantis' nose being now rotated down toward the runway. The chute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown. Space Shuttle Atlantis now comes home to the Kennedy Space Center for the final time. 25 years, 32 flights, and more than 120 million miles traveled. The legacy of Atlantis now in the history books. alignment circle turn.
Atlantis, you are on at the 90.
Copy, on at the 90.
In just a few seconds, the shuttle's crew will get their first view at the Kennedy Space Center. Atlantis now traveling 400 miles per hour.
And Houston, now the left side of the cockpit has the runway in sight.
Copy that, on field in sight.
Once again, this is the heads-up display that Commander Ken Ham is taking a look at as he pilots Atlantis down toward this runway. Space Shuttle Atlantis now traveling 389 miles per hour. It is now on final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. During this point in the flight, the shuttle's descent rate is 20 times steeper than a commercial airliner. Its angle of attack more than 7 times steeper. Now under 1 minute to go in Atlantis' flight. Atlantis now beginning what is known as the pre-flare maneuver. It will pull the nose up a little bit right before it hits the runway. Its speed now 320 miles per hour. The gear is down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Atlantis' nose being now rotated down toward the runway. The chute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown. Atlantis' current speed, Mach 1.6. Its altitude, 12 miles. Range to the Kennedy Space Center, 41 miles, continuing to bear down on runway 33. Atlantis now just 5 minutes away from touchdown. It is approaching what is known as the heading alignment cylinder. This is an imaginary circle that is created by the microwave landing system there at the Kennedy Space Center. It sits off the end of the runway and is about 7 miles wide. Commander Ken Ham will take control of the flight at that point in time and will steer the shuttle around that imaginary circle. This will allow the proper energy and the ground track and setup for the final approach and landing there at KSC. This is a view from the heads-up display. This is exactly what the crew is seeing at this point in time. Atlantis' current speed, 653 miles per hour. Its altitude, 9 miles. Its range to the Kennedy Space Center, now 30 miles. Touchdown now just 4 minutes away. Pilot Tony Antonelli now taking control of the stick for a few minutes, steering Atlantis around this heading alignment circle. This is a right overhead turn of 320 degrees. This will set up the shuttle for its final approach and landing there on runway 33. Now just 3 minutes to go. The shuttle's traveling 547 miles per hour. Its altitude 6 miles.
And Houston, Atlantis, field in sight.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Now the commander, Ken Ham, now taking control of the shuttle.
You're on at the 180.
Copy, on at the 180. It's a beautiful day.
Absolutely.
2.5 more minutes to go in Atlantis' flight. There you see the Florida coast coming into view. The shuttle continuing to turn to the right and line up with runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center. Commander Ken Ham continuing to finish up this heading alignment circle turn.
Atlantis, you are on at the 90.
Copy, on at the 90.
In just a few seconds, the shuttle's crew will get their first view at the Kennedy Space Center. Atlantis now traveling 400 miles per hour.
And Houston, now the left side of the cockpit has the runway in sight.
Copy that, Hawk. Field in sight.
Once again, this is the heads-up display that Commander Ken Ham is taking a look at as he pilots Atlantis down toward this runway. Space Shuttle Atlantis now traveling 389 miles per hour. It is now on final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. During this point in the flight, the shuttle's descent rate is 20 times steeper than a commercial airliner. Its angle of attack more than 7 times steeper. Now under 1 minute to go in Atlantis' flight. Atlantis now beginning what is known as the pre-flare maneuver. It will pull the nose up a little bit right before it hits the runway. Its speed now 320 miles per hour. The gear is down and locked.
Hey, Tony, I think that's all we had for you.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks.
You betcha. And Hawk, also, I think we're complete all the way up to where you're at egress also.
Yeah, I concur, Scorch. And I'm going to hang out here for a little bit. Tony's still in his seat, and Piers is working his way out. We have Sugar on board on speaker, so he's listening to all this. It'll just be a few minutes before I get back to you.
Awesome, that's no sweat. Great job getting through all the post-landing. It went real slick.
Yeah, thanks for leading us. Space Brain.
Thanks. Hey, Hawk, while you're just hanging out, you don't need to make any great strides for this. We'll take the, like an ASP action for it, but is AFD1 still on by chance?
Negative, AFD1 is off, and IDP4 is off.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
And did you say you had a switch throw for us?
No, only if that was on. For some reason, we had an indication it might have been on, but you say it's off, it's off. We like it, thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rotary right now. It's in the off position.
Thanks for the confirmation.
Houston from Atlanta.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Scorch, we're about ready to crawl out. Shane is listening to this, and he knows we've done ammonia hack, but not reconfig. And I told him we're done with everything in the checklist. Can you confirm that is correct?
Hey, Hawk, that is in fact correct. Again, great job going through not only the whole mission, but keeping a vigilance all the way through post-landing. The one thing I'd like you to do before you leave, if you could take GPC 5's mode switch to run, please.
And that is complete. With that action, we're going to call it a mission. It was a lot of fun. I want to make sure Atlantis out.
Awesome, and can't wait to see you back here in Houston. Enjoy your day. ASP Houston, ComCheck.
Houston, ASP is on board.
Awesome, Shane. Thanks. We just wanted to get one voice check with you before we lost those guys.
No problem. We're getting Hawk out of here right now.
Okay, sounds good. And just so you know, we probably have a few minutes left on ammonia before we have to swap or go to the cooling cart.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, back now with a live view of Space Shuttle Atlantis there at the Kennedy Space Center on runway 33. The convoy is continuing to process the vehicle now that it has arrived back home to the Kennedy Space Center. STS-132 crew is now off of the vehicle. They are in that people mover that is sitting there attached to the hatchway. Control of Atlantis is very shortly going to be handed over officially to the Kennedy Space Center. This team here in Houston is wrapping up their activities. There's just a few more items left to go. Tony Sikachi and his entry team are pretty close to finishing up their activities from here inside Mission Control. Once again, the official times. Main gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 2 seconds. Central time, that was 7:48 and 11 seconds. Nose gear touchdown occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 12 seconds. Central time, that was 7:48 and 21 seconds. Wheel stop occurred at a mission elapsed time of 11 days, 18 hours, 29 minutes, and 9 seconds. Central time, that was 7:49 and 18 seconds.
Die US-Raumfähre Atlantis ist vor wenigen Minuten aus dem All zurückgekehrt. Nach ihrer 12-tägigen Mission landete sie heute zum letzten Mal auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral im US-Bundesstaat Florida. Die 6 Astronauten an Bord hatten ein russisches Forschungsmodul sowie tonnenweise Ersatzteile zur internationalen Raumstation ISS gebracht. Nach der Rückkehr der noch 2 ausstehenden Shuttle-Flüge, der Discovery und der Endeavour, werden alle 3 US-Fähren zum Jahresende außer Dienst gestellt.
Und das war die Tagesschau um 3. Wir melden uns um 4 Uhr wieder.
Erfolgreich abgeschlossen. Das Space Shuttle mit 6 Astronauten an Bord landete nach 1,5 Wochen im All auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida. Es war voraussichtlich der letzte Flug der Atlantis. Die NASA will ihre 3 Raumfähren im November einmotten. 25 Jahre lang war der Atlantis für die NASA immer wieder im All unterwegs.
Flight, what happens to it now? We'll tell you what NASA plans to do with Atlantis and the rest of the shuttle fleet.
Main gear touchdown.
Look at that, a picture-perfect final landing for the Space Shuttle Atlantis. You couldn't have wished for more. The shuttle and its 6-man crew arrived at Kennedy Space Center just under 2 hours ago, in fact, after a 12-day mission to the International Space Station. Well, this was Atlantis' last scheduled mission to space, in case you hadn't heard. Our John Zarella was at Kennedy Space Center watching the shuttle land for the final time, and he joins me now live. So, pretty nice way to end the history of the shuttle, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what, Rosemary? It was a spectacular day here today, and we're always worried about weather here at the Kennedy Space Center, and it seems like there's always a delay for rain or clouds. Sometimes they got to go to California and land there, but today, no problems at all. Beautiful landing under perfectly blue sky as Atlantis touched down here from my right to my left about an hour and a half ago now here at the Space Center. And, you know, as you said, the last flight of the Shuttle Atlantis, 32 times Atlantis has flown since it was built out in Downey, California in 1985 and delivered to the U.S. space program. The cost of the shuttle at the time, $1 billion to build each of the orbiters that they have in the fleet. Flew 32 times, 121 million miles, and right now it's scheduled to be the first one that is decommissioned and will not fly again. Rosemary?
Yeah, and John, it's going up for sale along with the other shuttles once they end. I mean, I want to know who wants to buy an old shuttle, really?
Well, Rosemary, you got 28.8 million. Maybe you and I can put in a bid.
Okay, we'll pull our funds.
That's what NASA's... There you go. That's what NASA is asking for one of the shuttles, which is a discount when you think that they were $1 billion a piece when they were built. NASA has offered Discovery, which is the oldest in the fleet, to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian now has still got to come up with the money to buy it. They're not getting a free ride. Somewhere along the line, they've got to come up with the $28 million. The Kennedy Space Center wants a shuttle. The Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum in New York wants a shuttle. There are folks all over the country, the Johnson Space Center. There are probably 20 different museums and different facilities around the country that would like to have one of the 3 orbiters. Most of them say they've got the cash on hand. Kennedy Space Center, we talked to them yesterday, they're ready to go. All they've got to do is get the go-ahead. NASA will have to make a decision at some point in the near future as to who gets the orbiters, but they're saying, you know, they're still flying, so at this point, there's no real rush to make the announcement as to who's going to get them. But whoever does get them, huge increase in tourism to those facilities. The people here and the people in New York tell us at least a 30% increase in their tourism if they get one of the shuttles.
Wow,
Rosemary?
so worth the investment. All right, John Zarella, thanks so much for that. All right.
In Cape Canaveral ist die Karriere der US-Raumfähre Atlantis mit einer Bilderbuchlandung zu Ende gegangen. Das Space Shuttle setzte nach 12 Tagen im All planmäßig auf. Es hatte unter anderem ein russisches Modul zur Raumstation ISS gebracht. Nach 25 Jahren Dienst wird die Atlantis jetzt ausgemustert. Bis November sind nur noch 2 Shuttle-Flüge geplant. Dann soll das Programm eingestellt werden.
Atlantis hat ihren vermutlich letzten Weltraumeinsatz an der internationalen Raumstation ISS erfolgreich beendet. Nach der 12-tägigen Mission im All landete das Space Shuttle am Nachmittag sicher auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida. Damit endet auch die 25-jährige Karriere der Atlantis. Zukünftig soll die Raumfähre nur noch als Reservevehikel bereitstehen.
Welcome to this post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Atlantis' STS-132 mission to the International Space Station. Joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center are 3 NASA managers who will give us the latest on Atlantis' 12-day mission and following this morning's landing here in Florida. First, we have NASA's Associate Administrator for Space Operations, Bill Gerstenmaier.
Good morning.
To his left is Space Shuttle Launch Integration Manager, Mike Moses.
Morning.
And finally, we have the Shuttle Launch Director, Mike Leinbach.
Good morning.
We'll start with comments and then open it up to questions. Mr. Gerstenmaier.
Thanks, Howard. It's great to be here again. I can't say how great the overall shuttle station team really performed during this mission. You know, it looked easy on the outside, but I can tell you the behind-the-scenes work was very intense. The teams were focused. They just did a super job. They had a great attitude. They even had a little sense of humor throughout the mission, which was excellent, and it worked out just really well. The vehicle on the runway looked really, really clean. You know, it's hard to tell when you look underneath exactly what you know, if you see any small nicks and things, but it looked probably as clean as I've seen any of the shuttle vehicles we've had. And things looked really good. We had a little gap filler that popped out. We got some images of that, which will be good boundary layer transition data for us, and that's very important. So again, I want to really take my hat off to the teams that have just done a tremendous job of getting the vehicle ready to go fly, and then the execution on orbit was just phenomenal. And it's not only the teams here, but it's also the teams in Russia that built a pretty nice module. The things I talked to you about at the pre-launch conference, where I was a little concerned about some of the arm activities and using and birthing the new MRM-1 module to the space station, that all worked out tremendously smooth, and that's really a tribute to those teams that did a tremendous amount of testing in Moscow in the U.S. So again, my hat's off to the team. They make it look easy. I can tell you it wasn't easy, and they deserve a lot of praise and congratulations for what they've done. Thanks. Mike?
Yeah, I can't echo much more than that. It really was an amazing mission. We were joking on the way over here that it's getting to be rhetoric now that we tell you that the vehicle that we just saw is one of the cleanest we've ever seen, but that's actually the truth. Each one is just getting better and better. It's a real testament to the folks that went through and all the redesign work that happened after Columbia to really take care of the external tank and effectively eliminate foam shedding that can cause damage that we're concerned about. And there's still a little bit of popcorning that happens that we know about, and you could see some of those marks on the vehicle, but nothing at all in the realm of anything we are concerned with. So again, a real testament to the teams here at Kennedy who put the vehicle together, the launch team who gets it into orbit, the folks back at Johnson who plan out the mission, execute it, train the crews that execute it, and our Marshall propulsion elements really do rise to the occasion, and they're kind of the unsung heroes of getting us into orbit and letting us, again, focus on the mission and get the job done at the station. As Bill said, the Russians built a very nice payload with the MRM module. Looking forward to having that activated
And then we also talked a little bit about the gap filler that stuck out. It protruded, I forget the actual height, but it was pretty small. But we had the folks from Langley Research Center supporting us with the High Therm project, which is an aircraft that basically has some thermal imaging cameras on it that kind of fly along the flight path and try to catch a shot of the shuttle as it comes through the atmosphere, and up at about Mach 20 or so. And they got some good imagery. We did that on OV-103. Discovery has a tile that we intentionally have a bump on it to trip that boundary layer as a research project. So this gap filler kind of served the same purpose as an unintentional chance to gather some more data. We were fortunate to have that aircraft ready to go and image the vehicle, and they did capture good data. So that's a unique research environment. Not many aircraft fly at Mach 20 through the atmosphere, so the shuttle provides a unique chance to gather that data. And then you can stretch back just beyond this mission. So not only is this mission fantastic, but the entire life of Atlantis, the folks who built it, all the missions it's flown over its career have been just amazing. And so I can't even begin to talk about how proud I am of Atlantis and the whole team that put it together. So from a program standpoint, we didn't really have anything to talk about today on landing. The weather was just perfect. We kind of talked that this storm out in the Atlantic was either going to give us a big band of clouds and showers that we talk about forever, or there'd be a nice opening and we didn't really need to worry about it, and that's what we got today. It was a nice little opening to not worry about, so we were really happy there to not only launch on time but land on time. That's a fun thing to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. As Bill and Mike said, the vehicle looks really good out on the runway. Saw just a couple little dings. We'll get a good close inspection of those areas this afternoon when we get back into the OPF. We should get towing underway in the next 3 or 4 hours or so, and get back into the OPF and start the processing for the launch on need mission. The team has got the plan all put together for that. We'll start executing that tonight, and that'll go extremely well. And we'll see where that takes us over the next couple of months. I'm always amazed by the sight of the orbiter on the runway. It's one of the best things we get to do here at the Kennedy Space Center is go walk around the orbiter, talk to the crew when they get off, talk to the ground crews, the process, and turn the vehicle around. It's just an amazing machine. It's a testament to America's prowess in space that we're able to reuse this spacecraft over and over. And it's just a beautiful machine to see out on the runway. And we got to see it up close and personal again today. I'm going to hate to see that go away, but today we got to see her up close, and Atlantis is beautiful. And we'll start the processing for LON this evening. Thanks.
We'll now open it up to questions. Please wait for the microphone. Please, when you get it, say your name, news affiliation, and to whom you'd like to have your question answered. We'll start on this side over here and then work our way down. So with Stefano.
Yes, Stefano Coledan for RAI Italy State Television. I have, unlike my questions usually, a long one this time. For anyone, Mr. Gerstenmaier or the other. I think today was, looking at the past and the future of the space program, because Atlantis is down, possibly forever. You make it sound almost like it's going to fly again, but talking how good it looks. Other ships will follow soon, and the space station is built. Now, I remember when the shuttle program started, there were officials that were saying that the vehicle actually could be used to launch components, to be assembled in orbit, to build spacecraft that would leave Earth orbit to carry astronauts to other celestial bodies, etc. I realized that the ships are old and they don't have an escape system. I was wondering, though, if the shuttle had an escape system, if you could turn that cabin into a cabin that can be expelled in case of a launch disaster or in any other point in the flight. Wouldn't this be a reasonable, economical way to go instead of just retiring everything and waiting for we don't know what? Thank you.
Well, let's see. I guess I can take a crack at it. And it really comes down to the budget that you have. And from a technical standpoint, you could make any launch system work. You could go retrofit the shuttle to give it an escape system. Doing so in the existing architecture would take a significant chunk of its payload capability in terms of the mass it can lift to orbit. The fact that it's a reusable spacecraft means we take a lot of mass up and then back down again. And so from that standpoint, if your purpose is to just purely put mass into low Earth orbit, The fact that you use a reusable craft for it, you pay a cost. You then hopefully gain that back in a life cycle cost that is a cheaper thing to operate. So that really is the trade space you end up looking at. It's not only the design and initial setup cost to construct, it's the life cycle cost to maintain and operate. And then it really comes to the architecture for the purpose of the mission you want. For the building of the space station, the shuttle was the ideal truck to haul those components into orbit. You could do the same thing and build an in-space craft that then transfers itself over to the moon or Mars. Certainly that's all doable. It's just what architecture do you want and what's the best way to get there. If you run all those trades and you do all the math and you do the science, the shuttle as a carrier, heavy lift capability, doesn't necessarily lend itself to be the most economical or the most feasible. There are other ways to go. But then again, you have to trade the design cost. And then there are the intangibles that we'd like to talk about too, is just the familiarity of the system, the known hardware. You talk about you said the vehicles are old. It's true they are 30 years old, but they're not old at all. They're in fantastic shape. They fly perfectly, and they do exactly what we mean them to. We just don't have the budget to continue to keep doing that, plus more, plus expand beyond low Earth orbit. So at some point, you just have to balance your book and decide what to do next. Ideally, I think, we would have all loved to have kept flying shuttle while we set up the new system and we just transition from one right to the other and move on nice and smoothly. We just don't have the budget to do that. And that's the reality of the world we live in. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that or not.
I saw an alternate escape system that was being either tested or they were preparing to test, which instead of having a launch escape tower would have rockets underneath and would remove the capsule from the top of a rocket. I was wondering if that could be applied to the shuttle cabin and without a lot of I don't know how I should say it, but without affecting too much the payload capability.
We looked at it in the past. We looked at adding, I don't remember, in the 90s, we looked pretty extensively at adding an escape capability to the orbiter, and it was pretty invasive from an overall standpoint. It required a lot of modifications to the crew compartment. It required the extractor rockets or pusher rockets to be there. It had some separation planes. It was a tremendous amount of work to modify the vehicle, and then it was going to do what Mike talked about. It actually impacted dramatically the cargo and carrying capability, which wouldn't have allowed us at that point, if we would have done it, to build space station, because we truly needed all the cargo capability to get station built with the large modules we carried. So when we looked at it then, it was an extensive amount of cost, a lot of redesign activity, lots of analysis, and then you ended up with a vehicle that really lost a lot of its payload carrying capability.
And one final and quick question. And what about building a rocket based on the current architecture instead of reinventing the wheel from scratch?
It's certainly possible, and like I said, that's in the trade space of designs. You could design any system you wanted based on any architecture, what propellant you use, what size engine you use, how big the upper stage is, how big the main core stage is, whether you use solids or liquids. All that can be traded. It depends on what the variable you want to optimize for. Are you trying to optimize for design cost, life cycle cost? Are you trying to design for mass to LEO, mass to the moon? Pick the variable you want, and you can crank out any answer you want. And so, the shuttle was built back when the equation was said, build the maximum cargo capability you can to a low Earth orbit. If you're going to go back to the moon, you saw with the Ares 1, Ares 5 type design, that type of mission usually dictates that you need a higher mass to throw at the moon. So for translunar injection, you'd design a different system. But it's Stefan, it's certainly a possible design that you could use shuttle existing architecture to go build a heavy lift vehicle. The shuttle itself is a heavy lift vehicle. It's just carrying the orbiter as most of its payload.
And there's several study teams in exploration that are looking at those various trades right now. I think there's a request for information that got sent out to industry. There's some meetings going on in Galveston, I think even today and tomorrow maybe, that are actually starting to look at those trades to figure out what the overall next generation of vehicle we need is. And clearly in that trade space is some stuff that would use capabilities from the shuttle, things that we've done, processing capability here, and we'll try to figure out the right overall system and get that brought forward through those trade studies.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press, with two questions. The first for any of the panel. if you were listening to mission control as the shuttle was running down the runway, which maybe you weren't, but there was a real sense of finality with the commentator going through 25 years, 32 flights, 120 million miles, history books. I'm wondering, certainly some of you must have been struck with thoughts of that today as you saw Atlantis come home. And I'm just looking for some words on that.
You know, I was not listening to mission control. As a matter of fact, I was outside watching the landing itself. But yeah, I think we were all struck by the fact that that might have been the last landing of Atlantis, and that's probably why I mentioned what I did up front in my comments. It's a very, very special thing to see a reusable spacecraft land, get turned around, launch again, land, turn around, launch again, and we've been doing this for 30 years. And so there's not just a technical fascination with it and an appreciation for it. There's an emotional tie to it, and we all have that, and I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we denied that. But Mike put it exactly right. I mean, the budget is what it is, and the next mission will dictate the architecture of that vehicle, whatever that may be. I just hope it comes quickly.
And probably for Bill, given that the shuttle program is going to be around a little bit longer, at least toward the end of the year, if not into next, when do you expect to be making decisions on where the shuttles wind up regarding museums?
Yeah, I think, again, that decision is coming probably at the end of June, sometime in July. Is what we're thinking about, and that really hasn't changed too much. We'll see what happens. I mean, first of all, the first thing we're doing is we're going, again, through the manifest with the remaining 2 flights to figure out how we want to optimize, pick the right dates and some things there. You know, we've got September and November planned, but we'll go ahead and refine those as we go through, look at overall how we can best put station in the absolute best configuration, see some tweaks if we got to move some things and try to move some things around. So we'll do that activity first, and then the other piece is the museum kind of piece probably comes sometime in the middle of that, after we've really finalized how we want to really effectively use these vehicles.
Is there a meeting date for when you're going to look at the manifest as it remains?
We don't have a specific meeting date. We'll work it through our normal processes, through our normal boards and panels. What we've told the teams is if they come, we're processing for September 16th for the next flight. And what we told the teams, if there's any negative work or you're starting to do things that don't make sense, if you're getting a cargo ready that doesn't really make sense for that flight and you needed a couple more days, or we ought to go redo the manifest, we told those teams to come forward to both the station and the shuttle program, let them know, and at that point we would convene the right folks together and do the right thing. So we're kind of aiming for September 16th, but we're being open to suggestions to see how we want to optimize things, and we're telling folks to be mature and tell us if they see anything that they want optimized, they want changed, and they can tell us, and then we'll go ahead and see what we can do from an overall manifest standpoint to leave station in the absolute best configuration and take the absolute best advantage of these precious resources we have in the remaining flights.
I can give you an example of that. We just had a meeting last week, or this week, beginning of this week, for Discovery that just came back from its last mission. You remember one of the tiles on the rudder speed brake had cracked and fallen off. And they looked at it and looked at it, and it turns out we have a few of those that crack every mission, and it's the acoustics and the rudder speed brake itself vibrates a little bit, and sometimes those tiles bang into each other. So we sent the teams off together, a whole bunch of data, did a whole bunch of measurements both in the open and the closed position, measured tolerances, do a whole bunch of micro inspections, and they came back with a plan to do even further detailed inspections and to shave those tiles back to the gap that they're supposed to be, just to help improve the chances of cracking tiles, or I should say lessen the chances of cracking a tile. We don't want to improve the chances. And so they brought a series of work, and it was about 44 tiles, and it was going to take about 45 days. And if you look at the flow remaining to get out the door for a 9/16 launch, that was making them a little nervous for that amount of tile work. And so we asked the tile team to go back and prioritize that list if you're going to do it in chunks, which is your high priority, what's your second priority, and they did that. So we're going to go bite off that first chunk right now, and if we find in June or July that we really do want to move the manifest, we can go grab some more work. So that's the kind of thing we've been setting the teams up to do, is kind of, as you're doing some of this work, if you can put it in a priority order, that'd be great, and if you do find things that just make it sound like that's the wrong thing to do, bring that forward to management.
James Dean from Florida Today. Mr. Kirstenmeyer, you've talked about wanting to make a decision by next month on whether or not Atlantis may in fact fly again. Can you explain what is going to change between now and then to justify adding a flight and that cost? And specifically, I'm wondering if it's going to take a determination from you or your program managers that the station, or at least its ability to maintain 6 crew, would be at risk without getting additional logistics and stuff up there because of COTS-CRS delays, or what would be the needed to make that decision and say we have to do this?
Yeah, I think in reality we have probably most of that data really in front of us now, and what we're doing is we're presenting that data to the decision makers and the managers above us to let them take a look at that data and weigh it. You know, there's a cost associated with extending the shuttle into next year in terms of dollars that have to come from some program someplace. We can show the benefits that we provide from a workforce transition standpoint that are real, that help us with keep some critical skills around, let us make some decisions smartly. We can show what cargo we can specifically carry. I can show you exactly how that will benefit the station in the future. It makes things better, but does it make it, there's nothing there that says it's mandatory to go do that. If there was, we would bring that forward. But it clearly can improve things and put us in a much better posture. So we're kind of putting all those logical arguments together as much as we can, showing the downsides to folks and then providing it to the decision makers with the intent that we'll get some kind of decision. And what's really kind of forcing a decision for me is it's difficult for us if we just keep kind of staying in limbo. You know, we need to really get some plans in place so people can make some real decisions with what they've got to go do with careers and other things, also hardware plans. So we can't stay in limbo forever, so we really want to try to get that decision if we can get it arrived to in the June timeframe, and that's what we're trying to go do. So there's not going to be there's not a big eureka or a big thing that's coming forward that's going to say this is it. The data's there. It's pretty compelling. It needs to be looked at and evaluated, but there is the cost, and again, it comes down to the funding issue.
As just a follow-up, in your opinion, obviously it would be better for the station to get whatever it can. In your opinion, or anyone else's opinion, is it necessary to make that flight? You know, unless it's just absolutely impossible, there's no chance of getting the money. Is it? Can you convey kind of on the scale of, you know, how important, how much you think is needed? Very, you know, a little bit or a lot. You know, how much you would like to have that flight if you can get the money.
Yeah, you know, that's a tough one because, like Gertz laid out, that you know, there's nothing in there that says it's a mandatory, and it's hard to. At a certain level, you have to look at the downsides of the cost and the budget and the other work. And so, given the shuttle background that's sitting up here, we're going to say, yeah, we'd like to fly that mission, but it does cost the agency something, and that's the hard trade to make. So I don't think we can really go there because that's not our decision to make. That's, like Gertz said, we're going to take that data forward and let the folks who make those decisions decide if that's worthy or not. It's a wimpy answer for you, James. Sorry.
Chris Gebhardt with NASASpaceflight.com. Start with an easy one. The aircraft that photographed Atlantis today during her re-entry, were you originally planning to use that aircraft to photograph her, like as baseline for boundary layer stuff, or was it just something that came up with a gap filler and you had the plane available?
No, we actually had planned this ahead of time. The Cast Glance aircraft from Langley and the High Thurn team was scheduled. We had some money in the budget. We wanted to definitely keep them online when we do this boundary layer transition DTO. And we ended up, because we landed on the first day with Discovery on its last mission, we had a little extra money that we had budgeted for that aircraft team that we didn't end up needing. When we switched to an ascending node or descending nodes rather on the last mission, we were able to deploy ground-based assets which saved us some money. And so we looked at the budget, and the team said, hey, we can give you another flight for the money you've already paid us. And so they came online and we're ready to go today. It was just a coincidence that we had the gap filler, giving them something to look at.
And I guess not to beat a dead horse here, but with the 335 potential 135 flight coming, I guess next year, I'm just wondering what the realistic chances are of Atlantis actually retaining the 135 flight if it becomes a reality in June of next year, given you know, some of the like wing leading edge spar inspections and stuff that you have to do on her, or that you're planning to do on her to make sure she's ready to go on this. And just wondering from a technical standpoint if there are ideas or proposals out there that say, you know, if the 335 and 135 schedules slip a little further, if it makes more sense to switch that to Discovery instead of Atlantis.
Yeah, the teams are balancing all those trades and looking at all the options. There's, in addition to the processing that has to happen, you have to look at where it stands in its certification for time and life cycle. where that falls in the teams here at Kennedy. And basically, there's about as many options as even though there's only 2 flights left and 1 launch on need, there's about 15 options as to how you could lay all that out. And again, you kind of, just like we were talking about with how you pick a launch vehicle architecture, you kind of have to pick the variable you want to optimize on. You know, folks have been throwing out that, well, if you're going to go back, you want a Spitz vehicle so you can get a long lifetime on station. Well, we just flew a mission here with Atlantis without that capability, and it was a perfectly acceptable mission with 3 EVAs, got everything done it needed to. So it kind of all depends on what the content of that mission is. So once we kind of get a little more definition, we'll be able to then lock in some of those variables and start making decisions. It's kind of exactly what Bill was talking about. We don't want to let it go too much longer, because at some point we do have to tie some of those down and start deciding.
You know, I think I'd add that it's really important we focus on the 2 flights we've got remaining, right, and make sure that those are really well thought out and really well executed. This other thing is, we don't want to get distracted, take our eye off the ball, right, and then end up not doing something, or if we get too clever trying to move things around from vehicle to vehicle. I've seen us get in trouble many, many times. So we've got a pretty stable plan. We're going to make small modifications to that plan where it makes sense, but we're going to really focus on the 2 remaining flights that are for sure and make sure we really have got those executed the best we can, and then we'll see what happens on this last.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, you guys are beating the dead horse, so I'll steal something from Mike from a press conference ago that said, you guys are the ones talking about the launch on need flight way more than we are. We've got it bookend, we know what we're doing, and we're just waiting for direction. So.
And on that exact note that Mr. Gerstenmaier was mentioning, it's been a while since orbiters have been in sort of an extended flow between missions, and with Endeavor's last flight coming in February and the 134 flight currently in the November-ish timeframe, I'm just wondering, with Endeavor's original schedule for this had her being done with processing for 134 around mid-June and then mating it out to the pad. So what type of work gets done on Endeavor now if she's basically done with processing for 134 if the original timeline held?
Well, see, she's not done processing to begin with. The launch date that we're looking at for Endeavor is sometime in November, probably late November. So we're nowhere near done processing. If it does move out a little bit, we'll take the processing flow and extend it out. Maybe we go to 1 shift power on testing a day instead of 2. Might take Saturdays and Sundays off instead of working most Saturdays, that type of thing. We would just take the existing flow milestones, existing work, and basically spread that out. We have to be careful about adding too much work. I think you heard from both Mike and Bill that can get us in trouble if we have more time. We're all engineers. We like to change things, right? But we have to be careful. If we start adding stuff to fill in that time, we might be doing more harm than good. So typically what we would do is just take the existing work and simply spread it out.
Hi, Clara Moskowitz with Space.com. I think this is for Mike Moses, but maybe anybody. This mission seemed to go very cleanly, very few problems, and most of the objectives were met, as far as I understand. Just wondering, if this does turn out to be Atlantis' last flight, does that feel like an especially nice note to go out on?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time, that the best thing that can happen is the propulsion elements, the boosters, the tank, the main engines, the orbiter, all of that performs as it should, and it basically becomes out of the way, and it's nothing that we need to worry about when we're in orbit. And the team can do the mission, execute the EVAs, pull off the transfers. And we had a little bit of a hiccup here with the cable on the boom sensor system that got stuck, which kind of inhibited our ability to do some of our inspections on flight day 2, but we were able to kind of work that back in on a pretty low interference basis. But to be able to stay out of the way and let the mission be executed is the best thing, and having Atlantis be able to do that it's a good way to go.
Also, just quickly, I'm wondering, with the addition of the new MRM-1, does anybody have a percentage figure on how complete the space station is at this point?
We can get it for you. If I just quoted it to you, it'd be wrong. So we'll get it for you, and we can provide it to you. We do both by mass and volume now, and we can give you both of those.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Reuters. For Bill Gerstenmaier, I just had a clarification about this, the funding for this STS-135 issue. If you've got enough money in the budget to go through February, I think is the last time period we were told, and if you're able to fly the 133 and 134 flights on schedule, Do you need something else, some other approval, I guess from a Soyuz rescue or something else that would give this decision about flying an extra flight somewhere beyond your level?
Well, right now, you know, we have in the president's budget that he's recommended an additional $600 million that allows us to fly through December, through the end of the calendar year. That's been proposed to us in the budget. That still needs to be approved by the authorizers and the appropriators and within Congress to actually make sure that money gets transitioned to us on October 1st. So that needs to occur. And then the problem is between December and June, or whenever we decide to fly this other flight, we need to keep the workforce around. We need to keep contractors in place. We need to be ready to do failure analysis. We need to have all the shuttle test equipment and folks around to go support all that activity, and we do not have funding for that period.
So you're saying that you don't have any scenario where if 133 and 134 fly on time, you'd be able to do a 135 flight by February when you still have funding available, according to what John Shannon said recently?
Well, again, if we get the $600 million, we could potentially go look at all that. But then again, we now have to step back a little bit and look at what we've done from an overall manifest standpoint, right? Have we pushed things so far forward that we really haven't helped station? And a piece of the problem is we're going to have ATV flying in December, and then we're going to have HTV flying in January. Those are both heavy cargo missions. So if I did what you described, then I've got almost too much cargo at station from the wrong kind of vehicles at the wrong time that I can't fully effectively utilize the cargo that I'm delivering to station. So we want to move that other flight in February somewhere later in the year, later in the spring and the summer, away from those two progress, from the ATV and the HTV cargo flights, such that we can get the right balance of spares to station, see what's failed on station, bring the last components up, bring the last research up, and return research at the most opportune time for station. So it's kind of a finessing thing, but at some point it needs to be finessed if we want to really take advantage of what we're asking folks to go do and fly vehicles, and hopefully that helps a little bit. And where John was with the February flight is we think we can do that if we can continue to underrun and continue to save some money within the program. There's not a guarantee that we can get there. We're working a bunch of options to try to be prepared to keep options open, and then but again, as I've been stressing, is at some point we've got to quit working options. We've got to kind of then write them all down on a piece of paper, get serious and get ready and go execute.
And for the 133 and 134 flights, I guess for Mike Lineback, the boosters, the last set of boosters are coming in tomorrow, and if you could just kind of go through other milestones maybe coming up over the next, I guess through the summer, as to where you are with processing. Thank you.
Well, some of it depends on you know, the exact launch dates. We're shooting for September 16th. We still have, oh gosh, another couple of months in the OPF, something like that. I don't have those exact dates in front of me, I'm sorry. But yeah, the last set of boosters for the last flight are coming in tomorrow, so that'll be another milestone in the remainder of the program. We can get you all those dates, Irene. I'm sorry, I just don't have them.
And then quickly, on the percentages, they gave me a note here. It's 98% volume and 94% by mass. Sounds like an engineering answer.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com with a question, I think, from Mike Leinbach. You mentioned that processing for Atlantis for the launch on need starts tonight, but given that there is an extension on when the last flight may fly, what's going to be the pace for the turnaround of Atlantis? Are you going to run it a normal pace and just have her ready to sit in the OPF when needed, or are you putting it out over time? Thanks.
Well, that's a good question. The pace to begin with a processing flow is always the same. It's deservicing the vehicle from its previous mission. So we'll start that tonight. There are some commodities we have to get off before too long. We have certain time and cycle time requirements to get those commodities off. We have to purge the engines, got to get them dry. Those types of things always occur at the same time in a processing flow, and all that kind of stuff is done in the first week, essentially. And then we go into the turnaround. We get the payload down load going on, get the cargo bay, the payload bay emptied out, whatever may be in there. those types of things are factored in, different systems testing. And then hopefully we'll know by the end of June or so what launch date we're looking for, whether it's a launch on need or whether it's a mission, and what those dates may be. And then we would set the remainder of the OPF flow and pad flow for that. But the first couple of weeks of a turnaround are always the same, and they'll start that tonight.
Okay, thank you. And I think for Bill Gerstenmaier, with regards to the launch on need, is the current crew, the STS-132 crew that came back, is its flight deck crew that crew for Atlantis as well, or has another crew been set for launch on need? Thanks.
We haven't made a decision at all about crew selection yet.
Bill Harwood, CBS, with just a couple of quick ones for Bill. Just to follow up earlier questions, who is the higher authority that has to approve it? Is it OSTP or is it the president that ultimately has to say, let's do this, and then Congress has to give you the money? How does that work?
It's really all of those folks that you described. This is the same kind of answer I gave last time, right? But they all have to agree kind of on the plan, and they all have certain aspects of the plan they have to approve, and I need all those approvals to be ready to go move forward.
When you say you guys are presenting the information, you're actively presenting that, I'm assuming, right now to OSTP and OMB, whoever the responsible parties are. That's in work, is what you're saying?
We've prepared some concepts, and we've got some data available that folks can go look at.
And one more on money and what it would cost. I mean, John had said it's $200 million a month, to run the shuttle program normally. If you ended up having to launch 134 in February, for example, and even take that out of the equation. If you were looking at launching another mission in June, or is it really, for my ballpark purposes, is it just $200 million a month between the end of the year and whenever that flight would fly?
We think it's possibly a little bit less than that, and we're still kind of working at it and refining it to get a precise number. It depends a little bit on how this thing transpires over the next couple of months, what our manifests are, but we think we can probably be a little bit less expensive than $200 million a month.
And for Mike, you mentioned standing out on the runway looking at the vehicle. I mean, you guys down here at the Cape who work on these things, I mean, what were your thoughts on a personal level as you saw this vehicle that as clean as it is, knowing that its next step is a museum? What did you think about when you look at that thing?
Well, I'm first and foremost proud to be a member of the Space Shuttle team. Employee of NASA comes to mind. The thing that strikes me most probably lately is that at the end of the shuttle program and before the next program is up and running, there's going to be a gap in American spaceflight on American vehicles. That's a fact, and we just don't know how long that's going to be. And I'm not opposed to the new program at all. Don't get me wrong. I just, as a taxpayer and as a space aficionado, both space travel and space adventure, that gap in American spaceflight on American rockets, it bothers me a little bit. But it is what it is, and we'll deal with that, and we'll wish all the commercial providers the best and help them in any way we can to get them up and running as soon as possible. But that gap is unavoidable, and I just hope we do what we can as soon as we can to narrow that gap as much as possible. But to see that vehicle out on the runway and knowing it may have been her last mission, kind of emotional. I think you saw some people out there that looked up at her and kind of had some second thoughts about, was this really the end of the Atlantis mission or not?
Hi, Ken Kramer for the Planetary Society. For Bill Gerstenmaier, I'd like to follow up on when the shuttle retires. And can you talk a little bit about how you're going to resupply the space station? Do you have enough capacity without the shuttle? You've got HTV and you got ATV, but without, if the COTS program doesn't happen, what is the consequence of that?
Yeah, again, we've done quite a bit of looking at the manifest. We have ATV, HTV in progress to supply the station. We're looking at both SpaceX and Orbital to be other cargo providers. We're looking for them to come in the 2011, 2012 time frame from supplies. We've used these remaining shuttle flights to essentially outfit or provision the station with as many components as we possibly can. So for example, our large control moment gyros, they're already on space station, they're already pre-positioned. We just did the battery change out on this flight, which was a unique set of batteries that we got up and replaced those, so they're going to last all the way through 2020, 2025 potentially. So that's a good thing we've done. We also saw the large KU band antenna that went up, the SCANT that got attached, that provides a backup communication system for the KU system. So we have redundancy we've added there. So what we've done over this period is we've essentially pre-positioned station to fly for an extended period of time to the 2011-2012 timeframe until the COTS providers come online, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and move forward with them supplying station along with ATV, HTV, and continuing then operating station. We've also seen, luckily so far, fairly low failure rates on station in terms of components. So that's very promising to us because that says we maybe need less logistics than we had budgeted, so that also gives us some margin. It may allow us to even take a little bit later date for some of those commercial vehicles coming online. So we've looked at that. We can, we have a period of time when we can wait for them to gain experience to learn to deliver cargo to station, but we're going to need them in the 2011-2012 timeframe to keep station as productive as it needs to be to actually do the utilization that we want to go do. So they really are critical to us. We're looking forward to their success as they move forward, but we've got a little bit of margin if they're a little bit delayed, but not a tremendous amount of margin.
So about a year or two is what you have?
Yes.
Okay. Could I follow up one other question, too? There's been some discussion of continuing an Ares flight test program. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you're doing? Or is that all just congressional suggestions?
Well, that's really more in the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate. They kind of do the new development activities, and I do the operational programs, the programs that are flying. So I don't really have much insight into where that planning is. But I do know there's several teams out there looking at various options that we're trying to put together a vision for what that next plan is with some concrete milestones and concrete vehicles and missions. But I don't have specifics of that.
Peter Aylward, Southern FM in Australia for Mr. Gerstenmaier. When the Space Shuttle program eventually finishes, whether it's 2 or 3 missions from now, could you tell me what the astronaut corps will actually be doing other than those assigned to ISS duties or planning to? Will they be involved in the next generation development or?
Yeah, the astronaut office will do its kind of traditional role. They'll be definitely supporting space station. They'll be very active with the space station activities, doing research, understanding what we're doing there. The astronaut office is also typically very involved in the design of the new vehicles, so they are involved in training analysis, human factors kind of interaction with the vehicle. They're also involved in systems design, looking at things. I came to the shuttle program, a little bit before the first shuttle flight, so the astronauts were involved at that point, designing and helping to work with the engineers to go operate the shuttle. They also spent a lot of time in the simulators doing early things in the avionics facility, understanding how the software worked, how the vehicle operates. Same with space station. They spent a lot of time in the design reviews and the activities associated with that. So there will be a portion of the astronaut office where we take their flight experience, what they really learned in space, what they understand how to operate systems, what good form, fit, and function is from a human interface standpoint, and we'll capture all that knowledge so we can use that in the next vehicle. So the astronaut office will be involved both in supporting station and also designing and developing the new systems that we're going to go fly.
And once again, post-shuttle, could you describe what the activities at Kennedy Space Center are going to be here? Is the whole place going to be mothballed until they know what's happening? And also, are there going to be mass layoffs and retirements? And can you give me numbers on those, perhaps?
Again, we've got some workforce projections which we've shown for what the shuttle ramp down is. One of the things that's in the President's new budget is an activity called the 21st Century Range or Launch Architecture. What we're looking at here at Kennedy is could we build some things that are not single-purpose kind of facilities. So, for example, in the vertical assembly building today, we can process shuttles in there, and then we processed Ares 1X in there, but that we had to essentially modify the High Bay 3 temporarily to support Ares 1X. The idea is could we more generically make the VABs assembly facilities where you can have platforms that move up and down, so if a different rocket is in there, you could process a different rocket. So potentially you could even pick up some of the expendable launch vehicles that are currently launched over on the Cape side. You could process those there, go ahead and launch them in the high bay. They're also looking at a new launch mount, and maybe Mike can talk about that, but the launch mount, it accepts different rockets on top of it. So again, it's a generic kind of launcher base that could be used with different rockets. So they're going to be positioning themselves to make the Kennedy Space Center more of a multi-purpose facility that's not specific to one program but can support multiple programs. Same thing with the range. It takes us 48 hours or so to turn around the range. That's because a lot of the data that gets passed over to the range is unique. It's in shuttle format. Then when they want to go fly a Delta, they got to switch to Delta format. So we need to figure out a way we can get some of that software fixed so we can make that transition from one rocket to another much faster. The software that controls the shuttle is unique to the shuttle. All the PC Goal stuff is unique software. We built new unique software for Ares 1X. Could we build some software that could actually monitor a variety of different rockets to try to make the launch complex more efficient? So there's going to be quite a bit of effort looking at how we posture ourselves for the next generation to be kind of a multi-purpose ability to support multiple rocket time frame.
I think one of the most tangible things you'll see in the near term is a change to Pad B. We're going to take all the structure off of Pad B, make it essentially a clean pad, and make it available, as Bill said, for different vehicle configurations. Obviously leave Pad A alone. We're going to launch the shuttle off Pad A and probably leave it alone for some time after that in case the next architecture is a shuttle-derived type architecture, which I don't know right now. But that's the next thing you'll see is Pad B starting to come down. Because you know, like the mobile launcher that we had for the Ares test program with the tower on that mobile launcher, that's their configuration. Some other vehicle may have a different configuration, but most of what we're hearing is they would prefer just to have services out at the pad, but no structure at the pad, so they could design their own mobile launcher and their own tower to fit their configuration. So we're going to get Pad B down to essentially a clean pad concept, and you'll start seeing that pretty soon.
Eben Brown, Fox News Radio. Since the return to flight after Columbia, we've always had a launch on need ship ready to go in case. If there is a 135 flight, there would not be an LON flight, I'm understanding. Why is that an acceptable option? Is that something that's being said? Is there a decision or a conversation going on saying, well, we could forgo the LON just to get one more flight going?
What we're looking at is if we can make the crew size a 4 crew size, keep the crew size small, you could potentially use a Soyuz vehicle to return the crew in a period of time, so you can achieve the same launch on need backup capability with a Soyuz vehicle. It may require a fair amount of time on orbit. Then the other piece of data that goes into this is we're also taking a look at the performance we've been seeing on the external tanks, right? What are we really gaining? What protection do we gain by having another orbiter available for us to go do that? So we're looking at it logically. You know, has our tank performance improved? You know, we now have repair techniques that we've certified, or not certified, but we've validated in the ArcJet to make sure that we can repair damage on the shuttle. So are those things mature enough now that we would be willing to not totally forego the launch on need capability, but relax it and provide it in a slightly different manner using Soyuz and the robustness of our repair procedures and our tank performance? So and that's a piece of the discussion that we have to have. We need to get, again, the community to go agree that that's an acceptable approach. But we've laid out the parameters and we're starting to evaluate those things now.
The other big piece of that, just the station robustness. You know, when we first started this at return to flight, we were looking at a 30-day lifeboat capability on station. Those systems are now up and fully running, and we're looking now at 120 days, and by the time we get to the end, we're probably going to be up in the 150 days that a crew could stay up there before they need to be rescued. So that really brings a lot of other options to the table besides a launch on need shuttle.
That's exactly right.
In a situation like that, would a lifeboat need to be standing by at station in that case, or would you send a lifeboat up should you need one?
We would probably send one up should we need one.
And in the form of a Soyuz or
Yes.
something. Okay.
Had a few follow-up before we wrap up here? Just work your way down same order.
I'll be the cleanup man.
Okay.
Question.
Sure. Marcia, that's fine.
Marcia Dunn, AP again for Bill. I'm with the Falcon test coming up within a week or so. How crucial do you think it is to the whole current plan as it stands for that flight to be successful?
again, I think it's important, but it's not.
This is tough, right? Bill's dancing with it's the maiden flight of a new rocket, right? So
yes,
it's important, but you don't want to then make that mean it must be successful. A test flight, by definition, doesn't have to go to orbit to be successful. It just has to. You have to learn what it's doing and understand it so you can successfully repeat your capability. And so I think Elon said it best. He doesn't have any expectation that they'll, on their first launch countdown, push the button. I mean, they're going to learn something as they go. That doesn't mean they weren't, but you saw that in their wet dress rehearsals that you learn incrementally, and so as you go, you kind of learn. So we saw that with Ares 1X too. We got this extra pressure put on that program to say, well, it now has to work perfect. Well, it's a test flight. It's not supposed to work perfect, or it wouldn't be a test flight. There's a reason this first flight isn't carrying up a Dragon capsule taking cargo to the station. It's the internal SpaceX. And that's where we try to not want to put that pressure on them to say, hey, you better get that right because the next one's carrying our stuff. It's their test program. They can do what they need to, and they ought to meet their own objectives. So.
And I think that's really important. What I was trying to say, and I probably won't say it right, but even if it appears that it's successful, it's not necessarily that ensures that you're there. It's really the data behind it, right? How well did the vehicle perform against its margin, right? And how well did other things go? So it may give the appearance that it was successful, but then it's really deeper than that. But then on the counter or the other side is also if you have a failure, and it's a very clean failure, and you understand what it was, and it was very obvious to you, you can repair that and then build a much better, robust design so it actually could benefit you. So so the problem with test flight is, as engineers, we want to test at the right time in the sequence. If you wait until everything's perfect, then you're not really doing a whole heck like by doing a test flight. You know, you kind of knew it was going to be okay in the end, and you really didn't learn what you wanted to go do. If you go too early and you pick up some failure, then you get all this help in redesigning your rocket, right? So then you've got to pick the right time between when it's too early in the test sequence and when it's too late, that you gain the maximum out of that test flight, and that's the dilemma. And it's the same philosophy that goes into aircraft testing. It goes into other testing as well. So it's not an easy answer to me. It's what does the performance of the rocket actually tell us about the design, and then that moves forward, and then it's best to talk to the designer or the builder of the rocket about what this test flight really means to them.
Oversight over it whatsoever? Are you going to have people stationed in mission control to make sure things are...
This first flight is not sponsored by NASA. It's for another customer. So this is pretty much SpaceX doing their thing. They've asked us to help. So we're going to help pick up the first stage. So we're going to use one of our booster recovery ships to help them with the recovery of this stage. Again, and then we've also, I think they've asked for some camera assets and some radar assets, so we're going to make those available to them too. But it's kind of what's the services they wanted from us. They went out and asked us for help in these certain areas to help with their overall processing in a test flight, and we'll gladly provide that help to them where it makes sense.
James?
Mike Lomback, just following up on that generic launch mount, is your expectation that crews are going to launch from Kennedy Space Center post-shuttle? And if so, when do you think that might happen next after the last shuttle flight?
That's a real good question. And I don't know that anybody has that answer. I certainly don't. Where crews are going to go from will be dependent on their vehicle architecture. Whether they could launch from our pad is a possibility. Whether they will, I just don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, there are different competitors out there that want to do that business for America, and we'll pick between them, and it'll be their entire system will be designed based on their requirements. And does that fit our clean pad, or does it fit their existing pad? I don't know yet. I just don't know. I'm sorry.
Chris Gebhardt with NASASpaceflight.com. In terms of the RCC imagery from the OBSS on this flight, when exactly did you have all the imagery you needed to clear the RCC? Was it after the images were taken of Atlantis during the first EVA, or was it really not until the final inspection?
Let's see. I'll try to slice that into the big picture. Draw it with a crayon box. Says it was after late inspection. They got all the imagery that they are used to having in order to clear the RCC. But even with that,
the LDRI, the laser dynamic ranging instrument that's on the end of the boom, that gives us that 3D map of the sensor or the RCC surface, has some limitations, and there are areas where we're at the edge of our detection criteria to say that that's a critical damage size that we need to pick up, and so that system's working at the maximum extent of its capability. So even on a perfect mission where everything worked fine, when we say the RCC is cleared, there's still a little risk there that some things that we don't have imaged 100% perfectly, and we never really could. So it's kind of it's a sliding scale to say when did we have it, because then the other thing you could do is at what point was the risk now acceptable to say based on all the other assets besides just taking a picture of the wing. We have all the accelerometers in the wing. We call it the wing leading edge detection system that would ring if it got hit by something on ascent. We have all the imagery, both ground-based and on board with the SRB cameras, the ET feedline cameras. We have the radar now with the debris radar to see if something fell off. So you pull that whole suite together and you say, did I get hit by anything? And all of that was telling us no. So while after Flight Day 2, when we didn't quite get perfect coverage, was the RCC cleared for entry? As a team, no, they weren't ready to say we've seen enough to say there are no damages. But as a management team, we were comfortable enough to say, yep, but we are good enough to wait and not need to go any further with that. So it's kind of, you buy off a little bit as you go. You're never perfect. It's where are you now at an acceptable level to say, I am comfortable with what I have. The team was probably split about 50-50, whether we needed more imagery or not. The more we talked about it, the longer you wait, that other stuff comes in. The SRB film was delayed a day due to bad weather. We finally got that. The wing leading edge sensors guys came in and showed us some of the testing they've been doing recently to help validate the chance of a false negative signature. You didn't want to ever see, would it ever not tell you got hit? And they did some great testing to show that the chances of having a false negative were almost nil, so we knew we could put a lot of confidence in that system. As that all came together, the confidence of the team went higher and higher, and so I'd say we didn't officially clear RCC until late inspection, but as a team, we were probably mentally there about halfway through the mission when we looked at all the rest of the data.
Irene Klotz with Reuters. These are probably both for Bill. If NASA is operating on a continuing resolution without a budget passed for the year beginning October 1, at what point, if any, would that start impacting what you do with Shuttle and kind of station completion?
It depends. We need the specifics of what the continuing resolution means, right? Are we held at the 10 budget levels? Are we given the president's proposed budget levels? Or are we given something in between? So it depends what budget levels we're given, where it starts impacting us from a overall manifest standpoint. So again, our job is to kind of analyze those cases and then let the budget folks know where those cases are, so then hopefully they can craft a budget that lets us keep doing what we need to keep doing. But this is pretty typical. We see each budget cycle as we go through the fiscal year change.
Thanks. And another money question on the, you sound like really good neighbors with SpaceX, but are they going to be reimbursing the government for the use of these assets that you're making available?
Yeah, we have a SpaceX agreement signed with them, and there's...
So it's a marginal cost. We provide, they're not building the ship, we did that, but the fuel and the food and all the stuff, they do pay for that.
Okay, I think Stephanie, you get the last question.
Yes, one final question from me, which I should probably ask your bosses, too bad they're not here. But anyway, and I'm not trying to get into demagoguery here, but talking of a gap, okay, the Wall Street crooks got the trillions, and NASA's budget is 1/10 of what it was in the mid-60s. I mean, spaceflight is a status symbol, and also obviously that makes America stand out. So without it, or by outsourcing launches, or not having a U.S. spacecraft with people aboard, is going to make the United States look like it's not as powerful as it was in the 60s. And I'm wondering if, I mean, obviously, just your thought, as I said, I mean, you I said it should have been your bosses or the boss of your bosses that I should be talking to, but I was wondering if you have any opinions.
That's what I was saying. I'm not sure who's going to want to volunteer to jump under the bus. But
you, apparently.
Yeah, personally, apparently me. Personally, I'd love to see us spend more. 0.5% of the budget is what we spend now. I'd love to see that doubled or tripled, or heck, I'd love to just be able to spend what they make in box office earnings off of some of the major motion pictures. But the reality is that's not happening. Everybody sitting up here, everybody you'll talk to as you walk around the center, not only pays their taxes and dedicates that to the space program, but they dedicate their lives to the space program as well. So you're talking to an audience who could give you probably no answer other than yes, please let us do more. We'll show you a whole bunch of really cool stuff and inspire the generations to come to go into science and technology and math. Everybody talks about spin-offs from NASA. Did the Apollo program invent Tang? It doesn't really matter whether that answer is yes or no. What it did was spur a culture of science and learning and education. It's an inspiration thing to have a goal. So from that standpoint, I'd love to see us continue, because when I look at my kids, I wonder what to inspire them. This is what brought me along. That's not to say that redesigning a better tractor is what's going to inspire my kids, and so that's a great thing. We ought to spend more money on agriculture. So I can give you an answer, right? But from a space program, you're not going to find any of us that work here who aren't diehard space enthusiasts. So yeah, I'd say we'd all love to see more budget, but then again, I could say that about my personal life too. So.
I think the only thing I'd add is that we're tremendously blessed to get to do what we get to go do. I mean, all of us up here, this is as much of a passion for us as it is a profession, and we all want more, as Mike said, right? But I look at what we've got, and I am very thankful for what we have. I'm thankful to work with this team. I can't think of any individuals I would rather spend my hours with than the folks I work with in this business. There are no more sounder professionals in the world. We'll take what we're given, and we will implement the absolute best program that we can implement with what we're given.
Okay. And I guess just to follow up on the Tang question, the answer is no. Okay, just a clarification thing. Thank you. That's our last question, and our next briefing will be with the astronauts from Atlantis' STS-132 mission. That crew news conference will start approximately 2:30 or 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time, but for the exact start time, please stay with NASA Television. We'll put up a graphic as soon as we find out and we know the crew is available. In the meantime, for more information about the STS-132 mission, go to www.nasa.gov/shuttle. Thanks for joining us.
Elsa's. Down here.
You need to wipe the seals though.
Dan knows.
I can tell. I just was. You gotta go slow.
The hatch from the outside. Okay, so go ahead, L1. And that's loop 1, correct? Copy that. Verify. Open talkback. Verified. Open talkback. Verify. Verified and go. Go ahead, F6. Verified. Verified. Yes, sir. Verified. 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 Fire suppression bay 2 closed now. ACH. MLS 3 open now. A is AC2, B is AC3. OL12 and OR12 verified on. And B is verified off. Off. That is verified. And I can verify all 3 switches are center with 6 open talkbacks. And I can verify fuel cells, all 3 switches center with 6 gray talkbacks. There, you got some water? You know what? You got some water?
I'm sorry, what was that again, sir?
You got some water?
Dump ISO valve is verified, open talkback.
And KU6 processor, UHF VVA verified open.
And uplink is verified as banned. And code and transmit and receive verified off. Power switch verified.
Wideband ASIP PCM off now.
And PCM command switch is command pull talkback. And mode switch we're going to test now. And heater alpha and Bravo verified off.
That is verified.
So here. Go Charlie, main A, TAC N1. Sensor hole. O2B to tank 1 sensor hole.
that's the right one.
Grab a piece of good. So if you see your head drifting out the window, alright. Keep that in mind. Yeah, keep it to a wall. Nobody keep something like that. Just go over the ISO switch. Yeah, vent switch. Yeah, let us know when you're done there. We're gonna put.
This is CDR, go ahead, CCSE.
Yes, sir. It looks like they're getting ready to open up the hatch.
I'll transmit there to ground 1.
Hello, ladies. Good morning. How are you? Huh? We're doing good. Guess we're gonna pull that inner cover off too, right, man? Yeah, after we switch out. After we switch out, we'll get everybody done. Okay. Take my dog.
Are we ready to go? Or? We're ready. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our post-landing news conference with the STS-132 astronauts. And here with us is Ken Ham, the commander from the mission. He will make a few comments, and then very shortly thereafter we will take questions from the media present. So, Ken?
Thanks, George. In a very short sentence, we're thrilled. And we're thrilled because we accomplished the mission that was put in front of us. And a long time ago, when we were first assigned as a crew, one of our goals, as we laid them out for the year in front of us, was to have fun and to include everyone on the ground team in our fun and hopefully bleed some of the enthusiasm we have for spaceflight into the rest of the world. And since we've been back, we've been hearing stories about how folks have been having fun and enjoyed watching us have fun. And that's really important to us. So from that perspective, we're thrilled. On the serious side, we brought a Russian module up, did something that has never been done before by berthing that module with a Russian docking system on a robotic arm to the International Space Station. And these great guys next to me, that might be the only time I call you that, did some great spacewalking, and Tony did some great IVing, and Piers down there did some incredible arm operations supporting all 3 EVAs. And it's kind of interesting because Piers was the guy on this flight that had more EVA experience than anybody, and now he's a robotic, and he still does. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. He still has more EVA experience than anyone else on the crew. And now he's an accomplished robotics arm specialist, which I think is pretty darn cool. Old man. And speaking of Piers, sir, I think you have a moment of your own with the microphone.
For the record, and in front of everybody, I'd like to thank my family and my wife in particular for putting up with months and months of absences and grumpiness while we got ready for this meeting, and also for a fantastic selection of wake-up music, which I unfortunately missed by being in the wrong module at the wrong time. but my commander felt that I owed that to the world and my wife. Thank you. Her name is Mandy.
Well done.
Nicely done. So we'll take questions now. Please give your name and affiliation when the microphone comes with you. We'll start here with James.
James Dean, Florida Today. If not for the commander and pilot who might have been otherwise occupied, did any of you have a chance to think about Atlantis' history and career as you were coming in for landing this morning? Whether or not we know it's the last flight.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have much time to think about it today, to be honest with you. We were pretty busy getting her ready to come home and then putting the orange suits on and strapping in and bringing her back from Mach 25. We just inched up over Mach 25 before we started slowing down again after the burn. But we did have time on orbit to think about it, reflect about it, talk about it a little bit. Obviously, we've all flown on Atlantis now. Some of us have flown on her a couple times, and it's a great ship, and it was a real honor to be on the last flight if this turns out to be the last flight. And we're happy to bring her back home to here to Florida.
Mike, I was going to ask for you personally, as you've flown both your missions on Atlantis, how it will loom in your career and your spectacles a third flight. So how are you going to remember Atlantis in terms of it being the vehicle for all your shuttle flights, assuming we don't get an extension beyond?
Yeah, I guess I can't scratch out one more at this point, although I'd love to, and I'm available. But Atlantis treated us very well. I mean, she was just an incredible ship. She just worked perfectly. We were saying on the deorbit burn on the way home, I mean, the engines had it trimmed out to within 0.01 of what the burn was supposed to be, and it was just amazing. She just performed flawlessly and let us do our jobs and our tasks that we were assigned to do to take things up and to get them done.
Marcia?
Marcia Dent, Associated Press, probably at least for the two pilots. 120 million miles is a lot of miles. How did Atlantis look with all that mileage on her?
Oh, she looks great. I don't know if you had a chance to get out to the runway when she was still on the runway, but just absolutely fabulous. I don't know how old your car is. I ended up with a new one this summer when the government wanted my old truck real bad, so I couldn't turn down the offer. But just an incredible spaceship. She, like Bueno was saying, she really performed well on this flight. And reflecting on it, not so much while we were flying, because I was still worried about Hawk's Landing, but had a chance to grab a sandwich before we came over to here to talk to y'all, and saw him taxi in Atlantis off the runway, and even had to grab Hawk and go, hey, they're taxiing her off the runway. And I hope it's not the last time they do that, but it might be, and it's a shame. She is, from the condition we brought her back in and the condition that the great folks at the Kennedy Space Center are going to turn her around, she is so ready to get stacked and back out to the launch pad. You can tell that's where she wants to be.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Clara Moskowitz with Space.com. I know a lot of you actually are made a return trip to the International Space Station, and I wonder if anybody wanted to share thoughts about how it had changed since you had seen it last, and especially how it looks now when you guys left it almost fully assembled.
Yeah, it felt like home, you know, when I got back there. I spent a bunch of time up on the space station before, and but there are some definite changes. This crew has got the station really ship-shape. I mean, she is neat and tidy, and they've got it very well organized, so it was a very comfortable place, even with twice the number of crew members on board than were there when I was there. And the biggest addition is the cupola, and it's fantastic to look out at the Earth from the cupola. And you can see from horizon to horizon and get a real idea of the whole span of the Earth, rather than just a small view that we got previously out of one window at a time. And more importantly, perhaps, is the fact that operationally, as far as using the robot arm and as far as observing spacewalks, the cupola is an unbelievably fantastic tool, because we got used to training ourselves to fly that robotic arm by using all these different cameras, each of which gives you a little tiny piece of the big picture. And sometimes you can fool yourself, and sometimes it's very confusing, and it's very slow. Every time you have to change a camera, it takes time. And there were times that we trained to do the operations using those cameras because we didn't know if the cupola was going to be available to us. But when we actually started flying the arm, I said, you can put all those cameras away. I just look out the window. I mean, it's fantastic. So that was a huge change.
Hi, Robert Perlman with Collect Space. Side of that question for Michael Good. Since you're the only crew member to have not flown your second flight to the or your first flight to the station, can you compare the types of missions, not going to the space station and then going to a satellite like the Hubble Space Telescope? What are the pros and cons of the two types?
I thought I was off the hook on that last question. And then I got to look down here at my commander and say if I'm allowed to say that word. I think since he already drew blood, it's okay. No, it's definitely a lot bigger inside than Hubble was. We went out to Hubble and opened up its doors and crawled inside of her and worked on it a little bit, but definitely a totally different experience going out the airlock over there on the International Space Station, and just the amount of room that's inside, all the labs, just incredible capability and a lot of room to actually fly around. I mean, I talked about floating in space after my last mission, but now I can say that I was able to fly in space because there's so much room up there just to go, but straight down the labs and through the different modules, and it's just like you're flying. So it was a great experience and really an incredible facility.
And for the commander, since you did such a great job of sharing the fun, we definitely saw that here on the ground. I wonder what fun we didn't see. Were there any inside jokes amongst the crew that you can share, or funny experiences?
None. You saw it all. There's nothing left. Good question, though.
Hi, Eben Brown from Fox News Radio. With 2 more missions on the books and maybe a possible 135, as everyone keeps talking about, how many of you are looking at your next career moves, or how many of you are hoping for 135 and trying to get your name on the list?
I'll speak for myself. There's no way in the world they're going to let. I'll speak for all of us. There's no way in the world they're going to let any of us be on that mission.
We are available, however.
We are, however, available.
We know how Jerry feels now.
Need one more chance to get it right, that's all.
Okay, Justin?
Justin Ray with spaceflightnow.com. I guess for anyone that wants to take it after 12 days up there, what are some of the lasting memories that you're going to keep from this flight?
I guess I should answer one.
Yeah, it's all yours.
Mike was kind of a good question. No, there were 2 points that I really thought were quite amazing. We went all the way out to the P6 truss to work on the batteries, and went on the back side of the truss, and so I was back there all alone. It's just, you're so far away at that point from the living portion of the space station. It's quite amazing to look back and see just the size, from the outside. You can't take it all in from out there. You have to turn your head. It's so huge. My previous flight, the only addition since then was another truss, and but it just feels bigger. It feels more complete. And the other time was I was sitting on top of the boom after we had installed the antenna, waiting for some direction as to what to do next. So I had about, 20, 30 minutes sitting there basically laying on my back, watching the world go by, past the Russian segment. And I was just thinking, how in the world did I end up here? This is just unbelievable. It just seems totally surreal. And a lot of fun at the same time. And it's really going to stick with me.
Any additional questions out here?
And for the commander, could you just talk a little bit about entry and landing today, how it went, and yeah.
Yeah, well, it was smooth as silk, and I'm not talking about my landing. I'm talking about the whole entry profile. It was a nice day to come home. But what was absolutely remarkable was we were going through the high Mach numbers. That's the low 20s or so in what we call the plasma region, where you are quite literally on the inside of a fireball. And on my last mission, that happened in the daylight, and you could sort of see a faint pink glow over the nose. This time, it happened at night, and we were clearly riding on the inside of a fireball, and it was absolutely spectacular. The windows, all of them were bright, brilliant orange. Out the overhead windows, we could see, I don't know if they were vortices or bursts of plasma kind of shedding off the top of the orbiter. But one of the neatest things was we flew right into sunrise in this high Mach number region. And sunrise from space is absolutely spectacular. Every one of them is. It always starts with this beautiful blue-colored arc on the limb of the Earth. And what was neat in this case was we could see that blue color kind of burning through the orange. Tony saw it first because we were rolled a certain way, and he said, "Holy cow, you can see the sunrise through the fireball." I'm like, well, you know, I couldn't see over to his side, and then the orbiter rolled, and sure enough, I could see it on my side. I'm like, holy cow, you can see that sunrise through the fireball. So it was visually overwhelming. It was just amazing.
Okay, we'll take one more question, and that's going to wrap it up right here.
When Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com again. When we spoke pre-flight, Ken, when we spoke pre-flight, you said that landing might be bittersweet because it marked the end of the fun. So, sort of, is it the end of the fun? And was there a tinge of regret that the rain didn't keep you in space an extra day?
I'm not sure an extra day would have made that much of a difference, to be honest. The fun is really these 5 guys next to me, and we're going to be around together for quite a while longer, and we're going to continue to have fun. But it certainly did strike me walking around the orbiter today that I probably just did the coolest thing I'll ever do in my life. And it's over, it's behind me. It's great, it's a great memory, and it's nothing that I feel bad about. It was just one of those moments, kind of walking around looking at the spectacular airplane, knowing that it's over. It's human nature, it's okay.
All right, that's going to conclude our briefing and our STS-132 mission coverage. Thank you very much.